Well, it would feel like we're being dealt with a 1, 2, 3 punch. First COVID, now inflation, and watching an ally in turmoil. The world is suffering from an acute case of socioeconomic turbulence. Joining us with more on how senior leaders are dealing with the times is Stephen Miles, CEO of the Miles Group. It's great to have you.
It's great to be here. Thanks for having me this morning.
Can you tell us a bit more about what the Miles Group is?
We're a consultancy and we focus on succession planning for CEOs. And then we do a lot of work related to CEO coaching and coaching more broadly and development more broadly inside corporations.
I can imagine these times are quite challenging for leadership in various companies and corporations. Can you tell us a little bit about what you're hearing on the ground?
Yeah, I think it's some of the most challenging times ever for a leader. I think historically, if you ran a big company, something bad might happen, but it was a singular event and you dealt with that event. Today, we're dealing with sort of a multivariate set of events across many fronts. And so from a leadership perspective, you got to be able to handle crisis after crisis after crisis and deal with it effectively, both outside the company and with your employee base.
Yeah, no one feels particularly insulated from any of these issues. And one among them, let's start with COVID, because COVID put a great crimp in the way business was done, and it continues to do so. Even recruitment-wise, recruiting new employees has been terribly challenging.
Yeah, COVID's been it's been an interesting experiment, because I think for many leaders, it's showing the power of the company when they're ruthlessly prioritized and everybody's trying to do something. So for example, one of our clients here in the US went from almost nobody working from home to over 300,000 people working from home in under 6 days. So pre-COVID, likely impossible for that to happen. $1 billion, 1,500 meetings, and there's like 100 people working from home. COVID, 300,000 working from home. So that's the good side of COVID. We sort of wired for virtual, and we got our employees working really well from a home perspective. Now we have the sort of long tail of COVID, which is really around innovation and creativity. I think we've traded efficiency, people working virtually, for actual effectiveness, which is people working together.
Interesting. What do you say that is? Because people say working from home, I'm happier, I have more flexibility. How has that been a detriment to productivity and innovation?
I think specifically on creativity and innovation, because virtual leadership and just the virtual world is very transactional, and it's monotonous. People complain and are burned out because they've had 17 videos in a day. And that really doesn't lend itself to creativity. It lends itself to existing teams doing existing work. But if you take even existing teams doing hard things, innovative things, creative things, milestone events, much, much harder. You take new people doing anything, even harder.
Sure. And are you telling leaders to get creative themselves, to think about ways of not just recruiting, but also retaining these employees to make the idea of working back in a brick and mortar situation a little bit more palatable?
Yeah, I think we have to be flexible, sort of virtual and in the office. Look, people join companies and they work for individuals, and they're really having a crappy time working for many individuals, because it is transactional, it is online, and it's not, the human element is missing. And really through the COVID blur, people have gotten less coaching, less mentoring, less career conversations. There's really less dissonance about leaving the company, because you kind of have to sheepishly leave and go to your interview and then sheepishly come back into the office. Now you just flick them off and flick on the next video and I'm doing my interview. And so the dissonance level is down. So we need to get the engagement level, and company engagement scores are high. I mean engagement level with the person you work with high.
Let's talk about inflation real quick here, because inflation, it is affecting absolutely everybody, from the common man who just needs to fill up his tank to get to work, to airline companies that need to fly customers all over the world. So what is inflation now doing to the workforce, and how are you dealing with it as a coach?
Yeah, so inflation, we haven't had this since the 70s. None of us of any vintage, including board members, unless you did a stint in Argentina or Brazil, you have no inflationary leadership muscle. And it is, I would call it hyperinflation. This isn't just inflation, and it's been amplified by the invasion of the Ukraine by Russia. It was bad pre. And Russia is an energy superpower, and they're a commodity superpower. This isn't some some company that doesn't do very much. They're a superpower on the energy and commodity side, and that's creating a massive amplifying effect in terms of inflation. We've seen it with oil. We're setting records in gas prices, but that's going to translate, and it's not fully baked in yet to the world, right? Anything you move, land, sea, air, anything you store, really just making things, all of those input costs are going to go up way more than they are today. And what that equals is all of us are going to pay more for everything,
right,
including get ready for fuel surcharges.
Yeah, I know. Some people, they're making more, they've got more in their paycheck, but it means nothing because they're paying more for just about everything. Real quick, with about 30 seconds left, a token of wisdom that leaders that are watching this right now can start implementing in their workplace.
Yeah, so what I would suggest is, many leaders are really focusing on getting bodies back in the office. You're in Tuesday, I'm in Wednesday, somebody else is in Thursday. I would suggest, design people returning to meetings in person. So teams need to do breakthrough thinking. They need to be innovative and creative. And let's get the team together around work as opposed to having people sitting in the office.
Good advice. Thank you so much, Stephen, for joining us.
Thanks very much for having me.
We're back after this.